I've played a lot of PS4 games, but not all of them deserve the hype. So in this video, I'm ranking the best and the worst based purely on my experience. From true masterpieces to complete disappointments, this list might surprise you. Let's get into it. Detroit Become Human is one of the most thrilling and emotional games I've played on PS4. I loved how every choice I made really mattered, shaping the stories of three very different androids. Kara, who cares for a little girl, Connor, a police prototype, and Marcus, who fights for android freedom. The world of Detroit is detailed and alive, from rainy streets to abandoned amusement parks, and the performances make the story feel real. Even if some dialogue is a bit heavy-handed, the branching paths and emotional stakes kept me hooked, and I couldn't wait to play it again. For me, this earns an excellent tier on the PS4 list. Tekken 7 is a fighting game I keep coming back to on PS4 because it blends deep, technical combat with something anyone can pick up and play. I love the Mishima Saga story. It's over-the-top, dramatic, and a little silly, but it kept me entertained and made me care about characters like Heihachi, Jin, and Kazuya. Each fight feels alive, and I often think about timing, movement, and which combo to use, because every choice can make a big difference. I also spend a lot of time on character customization, mixing costumes, effects, and auras to make my fighters look exactly how I want. The soundtrack keeps me pumped during battles, and I feel a strong sense of nostalgia hearing music from older Tekken games. Online matches are smooth, and even when I try complicated moves, I feel challenged but not frustrated. With so much to explore and master, I keep returning to it, and it clearly earns an excellent tier on the list. Rise of the Tomb Raider is an adventure I loved because it blends exploration, puzzles, and combat in a way that kept me fully engaged from start to finish. Lara's story is compelling, and her cleverness, determination, and resilience make her feel more alive than ever. Traversing snowy mountains, dark forests, and crumbling tombs felt thrilling, especially when I used all of Lara's tools, like rope arrows, climbing gear, and quick acrobatics, to reach hidden areas or solve intricate puzzles. Combat was satisfying, letting me combine weapons, explosives, and strategy creatively, while optional challenge tombs gave me hours of extra exploration and rewards. Unlocking outfits, testing expedition mode, and discovering hidden relics added even more variety. With its mix of story, puzzles, exploration, and action, it clearly earns a great tier. Cyberpunk 2077 throws you into its dazzling and dense cityscape with almost complete freedom, and I was amazed by how many choices I had in every part of the game. Playing as V, I could approach missions in different ways, experiment with stealth, combat, hacking, or a mix of all three, and my decisions often had real, noticeable consequences on the world and the people I met. I spent hours exploring Night City, discovering hidden areas, unique vehicles, and side quests that were often more interesting and rewarding than the main story. The characters, including Johnny Silverhand, made the world feel alive, and the soundtrack added energy and atmosphere to every encounter, from high-speed chases to quiet, tense conversations. Even with occasional bugs, I felt fully immersed in the story, the choices, and the chaos of the city, and it clearly earns an excellent tier. Mad Max is a brutal and thrilling adventure I loved exploring because it combines high-speed vehicular combat, intense on-foot fights, and a vast, dangerous wasteland to dominate. I spent hours upgrading Max in the Magnum Opus, adding armor, weapons, nitro boosts, and even flame cannons, which made every chase and battle feel personal and satisfying. Driving through dusty deserts, ruined cities, and enemy convoys kept me on edge, while discovering hidden vehicles, artifacts, and side challenges gave me a reason to explore every corner. Melee combat was a satisfying mix of timed attacks and chain moves, and vehicle battles let me get creative with ramming, harpoons, and explosives. Even with repeated activities, the progression and freedom kept me hooked, and the striking, harsh world made every victory feel earned. It clearly earns a good tier. Street Fighter VI is an incredible fighting game that completely redefines the series, and I was blown away by how much depth and freedom it gives from the very first match. I love the drive system, which lets me use overdrive specials, drive rushes, parries, and impacts to approach every fight in different ways, creating tense and exciting battles where timing and meter management feel crucial. The roster of new and returning characters is fantastic, and I spent hours learning their moves, combos, and quirks while experimenting with custom strategies. World Tour and the Battle Hub added even more layers, letting me explore, train, and try new moves while interacting with other players or AI. Every match feels dynamic, the mechanics are intuitive yet deep, and the online experience is smooth and fun. With all its innovations and polish, it clearly earns a masterpiece tier. God of War is an unforgettable adventure I immediately got hooked on because it combines breathtaking story, incredible combat, and a richly detailed world. Playing as Kratos alongside his son, Atreus, I felt every moment mattered, from intense battles against giants and Draugr to clever use of the Leviathan axe and Atreus bow. I spent hours upgrading weapons, unlocking runic attacks, and improving armor, while exploring snowy mountains, ancient ruins, and hidden areas that rewarded curiosity. The visuals are stunning, and the seamless cutscenes make me feel like I'm part of the action. Every fight, puzzle, and exploration moment kept me fully engaged, and with its perfect balance of gameplay and storytelling, it clearly earns a masterpiece tier. Gran Turismo 7 is a racing experience I found both thrilling and rewarding, combining deep car customization, precise handling, and a wide variety of tracks that kept me hooked for hours. I loved working through the Gran Turismo Cafe menu books, unlocking cars, learning new tracks, and upgrading vehicles to match my driving style. Every car felt unique, from retro roadsters to modern sports machines, and experimenting with tuning and setup gave me full control over how I approached each race. The driving physics are precise, the visuals stunning, and the dynamic time of day and weather effects made every track feel alive. Even with some frustrating rolling starts and a few online restrictions, I appreciated how the game balances accessibility with challenge. With its mix of depth, control, and racing satisfaction, it clearly earns a great tier. Far Cry 3 Remastered is an intense and immersive adventure I got hooked on because it combines open-world exploration, dynamic combat, and a gripping story. Playing as Jason Brody, I was constantly deciding how to approach enemies, whether to snipe from a distance, rush in with assault rifles and rocket launchers, or sneak through using stealth and machetes. I loved upgrading my skills and crafting equipment from wildlife to become more powerful, and liberating pirate outposts to unlock fast travel points added a satisfying sense of progress. The island is beautiful, alive with wildlife, and filled with side missions, races, and hunting challenges that gave me plenty to do beyond the main story. The story itself kept me engaged with memorable characters like Voss, and the combat and freedom of choice made every encounter exciting. With its mix of strategy, action, and exploration, it clearly earns a great tier. Hollow Knight Silksong is a challenging and thrilling adventure that had me completely absorbed from the start. Playing as Hornet, I explored the vibrant world of Farloom, uncovering secrets, solving puzzles, and facing tough enemies that demanded patience, precision, and clever use of abilities. Combat felt rewarding because it emphasized positioning, timing, and the smart use of crests and tools, while my silk-based healing system gave me room to recover when needed. The platforming was sharp, the environment stunning, from coral-filled canyons to clockwork cities, and every new area had surprises that kept exploration exciting. Boss fights were nail-biting, yet fair, and discovering alternate routes and hidden content made each playthrough feel unique. The combination of thoughtful design, deep combat, and clever exploration makes this an exceptional experience, earning it a masterpiece tier. Batman Arkham Knight is the ultimate conclusion to Rocksteady's Arkham series, and I was completely immersed from start to finish. Exploring a massive, stormy Gotham with 3 islands full of crime and neon-soaked streets, I could glide, grapple, and drive the fully controllable Batmobile through both high-speed chases and tank-based combat, each scenario feeling dynamic and thrilling. The strike and counter combat, predator stealth, and new multi-takedown moves kept fights tense and satisfying, while clever puzzles integrated the Batmobile in ways that expanded Batman's toolkit. Side missions with classic villains, cooperative AI moments with Robin, Nightwing, and Catwoman, and gorgeous visuals with reflective wet streets made the city feel alive. Even minor frustrations with some boss fights or tank platforming never overshadowed the sense of power and strategy I felt playing as the Dark Knight. It is a masterpiece tier experience. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 delivers a familiar but surprisingly energetic experience, mixing high-octane campaign sequences, tense multiplayer, and a revitalized zombies mode. The campaign is a chaotic roller coaster across deserts, political rallies, and physics-defying vehicle chases, with strong performances from both returning characters like Woods and Adler and fresh faces, and cutscenes that make each moment feel cinematic. Zombies has returned to smaller, wave-based maps, focusing on classic kill and upgrade mechanics that feel satisfying and strategic. Multiplayer benefits from tweaks like Omni movement and refined TTK, making every encounter feel faster and more precise. New modes like Kill Order demand teamwork and add variety, while weapon upgrades and gadgets keep gameplay fresh. The campaign can feel overstuffed, and some missions are predictable, placing this entry in the mediocre tier. Bloodborne had me gripping my controller from the moment I stepped into Yharnam. Every street, alley, and dark corner felt alive, eerie, and full of secrets waiting to be discovered. I fought terrifying monsters, from insane villagers to cosmic horrors, and each victory felt hard-earned. The combat kept me on my toes, forcing me to balance aggression with patience, while the transforming weapons and quick counterattacks made fights satisfying. Exploring hidden paths, uncovering lore, and solving mysteries gave me constant rewards, and even the rare frustrations like long load times or distant checkpoints made success feel earned. The subtle cooperative features, challenging bosses, and beautifully haunting environments created an unforgettable journey. This is masterpiece tier gameplay, and it's one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had. Riders Republic is wild and chaotic, and I've spent hours exploring its massive playground of mountains, canyons, lakes, and snowy peaks. I jumped between bikes, skis, snowboards, wingsuits, and even rocket packs, racing, tricking, and completing events that challenge both speed and skill. The map is enormous, packed with collectibles, landmarks, and hidden gear, and seeing thousands of other players perform stunts in real time made the world feel alive. Some controls are tricky at first, especially for complex tricks, but with patience I got a rhythm going, and the reward of landing a perfect sequence is incredible. The multiplayer, massive races, and endless events kept me coming back. Despite some cheesy dialogue and awkward tutorials, the fun and variety are undeniable, placing this in the good tier. The Last of Us Part 2 is dark, haunting, and emotionally exhausting. I felt constantly tense, sneaking through ruined Seattle, avoiding human enemies and terrifying clickers, or choosing to fight them head-on with every weapon and tool I could find. Stealth, ranged attacks, and environmental traps all felt meaningful, and upgrading my gear made every encounter more strategic. The world is full of hidden corners, small details, and ruined shops that make it feel real. Audio, visuals, and animation brought every moment to life, from the quiver in Ellie's lips to the terrifying sounds of enemies nearby. Every encounter challenged me and made me think, and after finishing it, I'd place it in the masterpiece tier. Cuphead is wild, stressful, and absolutely brilliant. From the first moment I saw the hand-drawn 1930s animation, I was amazed by the level of detail and charm, and the music kept my heart racing through every boss fight. The difficulty is brutal, no checkpoints, one-hit failures, and chaotic patterns that test every ounce of focus, but every victory felt earned, and I loved experimenting with different shots. Super moves and strategies to get through tough stages. Platforming, bullet hell, and creative boss battles kept me on edge while teaching me patience, timing, and observation. Even the randomized patterns added tension without breaking the fun, and I emerged a better player for it. After countless retries, challenges, and laughs, it unquestionably sits in the masterpiece tier. Ghost of Tsushima completely drew me in from the first moment I set foot on Tsushima Island. Walking through its forests, beaches, and villages felt alive, with every leaf, flower, and gust of wind adding to the atmosphere, and the weather changing constantly made it feel real. Combat was intense and satisfying, with stances, parries, and timing making every duel feel meaningful, while tools like bows, kunai, and sticky bombs let me approach fights in creative ways. Side quests from small tales of Tsushima to epic mythic tales kept me exploring and rewarded me for patience and skill, and photo mode made me stop to admire the scenery constantly. Even with minor AI or stealth flaws, the world felt complete and immersive, giving me countless moments of awe and leaving it solidly in the masterpiece tier. Dark Souls 3 completely consumed me from the moment I stepped into Lothric. I felt awe as I explored the high wall, trudged through poison swamps, and wandered Irithal's icy streets, constantly searching for hidden paths, illusory walls, and mini-bosses. I loved how every fight kept me on edge. The stances, parries, and weapon arts made me think carefully about each attack, while dual wielding and spells let me experiment with my style. I struggled and succeeded with bosses, felt proud when I overcame them, and discovered treasures that made my journey feel rewarding. I used Embers for co-op and learned how risky online play could be. Despite small frame rate dips and some tricky AI moments, I had an exhausting, thrilling adventure that earns a solid spot in the masterpiece tier. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot kept me engaged for over 30 hours, and I loved reliving the story of Goku, Vegeta, and the others. I enjoyed flying across vast landscapes, taking part in classic battles, and experimenting with transformations like Super Saiyan in combat. The key and tension systems made fights feel tactical, and I appreciated being able to string together combos and special moves for maximum effect. I liked the smaller moments too, like training with Piccolo or interacting with side characters, which made the world feel alive. At the same time, some side quests felt boring, and repeated dialogue became annoying as I explored the open world. Despite its flaws, I had a lot of fun, and consider it worthy of the good tier for its faithful story, satisfying fights, and nostalgic appeal. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End kept me glued to the screen for over 40 hours, and I loved every sweeping vista and heart-pounding action sequence. I found myself leaping across cliffs, grappling over rooftops, and sneaking past enemies, feeling like I was truly part of this world. The story of Nathan Drake, his brother, and Elena had me invested, especially during quiet moments that revealed their struggles and relationships. Combat and stealth felt smooth, and I enjoyed the standoffs and the clever ways I could approach fights. The open-world exploration and hidden treasures kept me curious, though some of the third act felt repetitive. Still, I had a blast experiencing the cinematic thrills, satisfying gameplay, and polished design, which easily puts it in the masterpiece tier. Assassin's Creed Mirage starts with a world of shadows and careful planning. I spent hours sneaking across rooftops and through crowded streets in Baghdad, timing every move around patrolling guards and making use of the environment to stay unseen. Throwing knives, spice bags, and precarious ledges became essential tools, and experimenting with Bassam's stealth combo abilities to eliminate multiple enemies in one go felt incredibly satisfying. Combat felt more deliberate than in recent entries, forcing me to balance dodges, counters, and stamina rather than relying on constant attacks. The city itself felt alive with bustling markets, hidden alleys, and rooftops encouraging exploration. Though the story was short and some characters felt flat, the focused missions and emphasis on stealth-based strategy make this a good tier experience. Resident Evil 2 Remake thrusts players into the nightmare of Raccoon City, where danger lurks around every dark corner. I carefully navigated shadowy hallways and the eerie police station, managing limited ammo, healing items, and inventory space while listening to every creak, groan, and distant zombie moan. Leon and Claire's campaigns are largely similar, but the slight differences in combat tools and story moments forced me to think tactically. The zombies are disturbingly lifelike, reacting to damage with violent precision, and the RE engine's lighting and visuals make every room feel tense and oppressive. Exploring labs, solving puzzles, and surviving relentless undead made every encounter thrilling. This is masterpiece tier survival horror. Marvel's Spider-Man delivers the exhilarating web-swinging, acrobatic combat, and city-wide exploration that fans have long hoped for. Traversing New York's rooftops feels fluid and empowering, while stealth sections and gadget-based encounters add variety and strategy to every mission. The story gives equal weight to Peter Parker and Spider-Man, exploring his relationships, responsibilities, and growth in ways that make the stakes feel real. Villains are integrated thoughtfully, allowing for tense and cinematic battles without overwhelming the narrative. Optional side missions and collectibles expand the world, giving players extra challenges and hidden rewards, while the city itself feels alive with traffic, pedestrians, and small events that enrich the open-world experience. Coupled with detailed visuals, a dynamic soundtrack, and responsive gameplay, it's a thrilling adventure that earns a masterpiece tier. Lies of P is one of the most fun Souls-likes I've played in a long time. I spent hours exploring the city of Krat, fighting enemies and taking on bosses that really tested my skills. The weapon crafting system is amazing. I loved mixing blades and hilts to make strange but powerful weapons, and trying them out in combat kept me on my toes. The story also pulled me in with choices that let me lie or tell the truth, and characters like Geppetto and Gemini made the world feel alive. Some parts were a little buggy, and the difficulty sometimes spiked unexpectedly, but that didn't stop me from having a blast. With its tense fights, memorable bosses, and dark, twisted world, I'd say this one belongs in the excellent tier. Battlefield 1 is one of the most intense shooters I've played in a long time. I spent hours in multiplayer, using World War I era guns and vehicles, and every match felt different because the maps and weather could change so much. The single-player campaign was shorter than I expected, but I liked how each story focused on the human side of the war. I had fun experimenting with different classes, switching between rifles, machine guns, and even tanks and biplanes. Some maps were tricky, and the old-school weapon handling made me think carefully before every shot, which I enjoyed. Between the tense firefights, dramatic scenery, and balanced gameplay, this one easily belongs in the excellent tier. Crash Bandicoot 4 feels like the best mix of classic fun and fresh ideas. From the start, I was swinging, spinning, and jumping through vibrant levels, learning how to use the new quantum masks to slow time, flip gravity, and solve tricky platforming puzzles. Switching between Crash, Coco, Tawna, and Cortex kept me on my toes and made each level feel different, while hidden crates, gems, and bonus challenges gave me reasons to explore every corner. Some sections were tricky and required careful timing, but the game always felt fair, and I loved discovering clever ways to use my abilities to get through tough spots. The worlds are colorful, detailed, and full of personality, and the story is playful but fun enough to care about. With creative levels, tight platforming, and loads of charm, this entry earns its spot in the great tier. Red Dead Redemption 2 is huge and beautiful, and I felt like I was living in the Old West as Arthur Morgan. Riding through forests, deserts, and towns, I noticed the little details everywhere, from animals in the distance to conversations in the camp. The story is slow and deliberate, but I cared about the people around me, and the dialogue and voice acting made it feel real. Hunting, fishing, maintaining my guns, and bonding with my horse added layers of immersion that I haven't felt in many games. The gunplay and combat were easy at times, but sneaking around and taking my time made the world feel alive. Even if the pacing isn't for everyone, I loved getting lost in the vast living world. This adventure belongs in the masterpiece tier. Batman Return to Arkham gave me a chance to revisit Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and I had a lot of fun playing as the Dark Knight again. I could glide across rooftops, use all of Batman's gadgets, and take down familiar villains while sneaking through the shadows. The graphics are sharper now, especially on his suit and cape, but the brighter look sometimes makes Gotham feel less dark and a bit fake. I noticed the game stuttered occasionally, which broke my focus, but the combat and stealth still felt satisfying and clever. All the DLC and extra skins are included, which is a nice bonus. For someone new, it's a great way to experience the classics, and for me, it felt solid and engaging. This one earns a great tier spot. Final Fantasy VII Remake pulled me into Midgar and kept me hooked for hours. I loved seeing Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, and Barret fully brought to life with modern graphics, strong voice acting, and an amazing soundtrack. The combat felt exciting because it mixes real-time action with the classic ATB system, so I was constantly switching characters, using abilities, and planning my attacks. Boss fights were especially memorable because they required strategy and teamwork instead of simple button mashing. I also enjoyed exploring the city and spending more time with side characters who felt much more developed than before. For me, this remake successfully refreshes a legendary RPG, which easily places it in the masterpiece tier. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, gave me an incredible sense of freedom in how I approach every mission. Instead of forcing me down a single path, the game lets me plan my own strategies, whether I want to sneak through a base quietly, knock out guards, or go loud with heavy weapons and support. I loved how the open world constantly reacts to my choices, from the time of day to how enemies adapt to my tactics. Managing Mother Base also became a huge part of the experience, since recruiting soldiers and collecting resources directly improved my gear and abilities. The story isn't as strong or memorable as earlier entries in the series, but the gameplay systems are so deep and rewarding that I never felt bored. Because of its incredible sandbox design and player freedom, this game easily belongs in the masterpiece tier. Call of Duty Modern Warfare gave me the kind of military shooter experience I enjoy from this series. The campaign feels intense and cinematic, with missions that constantly change things up and keep me focused on every move I make. I liked how the game mixes stealth sections with chaotic firefights, and the gunplay feels sharp and satisfying throughout. In multiplayer, I spent a lot of time experimenting with the deep weapon customization system and trying modes like gunfight and ground war, which add good variety to the experience. Not every map feels well designed, and sometimes the pacing of matches can get frustrating, but the core gameplay remains strong and engaging. Because of its solid campaign, smooth gunplay, and variety of modes, this entry clearly fits in the excellent tier. God of War Ragnarök continues Kratos and Atreus' journey as the prophecy of Ragnarök slowly unfolds across the Nine Realms. I spent dozens of hours exploring this world, meeting new characters, and watching the relationship between father and son evolve in meaningful ways. The storytelling is powerful, and many moments feel emotional and cinematic, supported by strong voice acting and a fantastic musical score. Combat still feels heavy and satisfying, especially when switching between the Leviathan axe and the Blades of Chaos during intense fights. The boss battles stand out as some of the most exciting moments in the entire adventure. While some puzzles and side activities feel repetitive, the overall experience remains memorable. Because of its emotional story, epic scale, and strong combat, this adventure clearly belongs in the masterpiece tier. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is the kind of RPG where I can lose track of time while exploring its huge open world. Playing as Geralt of Rivia, I travel across war-torn lands searching for Ciri while dealing with monsters, political conflicts, and complicated choices along the way. What I enjoy most is how alive the world feels, with villages, forests, and battlefields that all tell their own stories. Combat is fast and satisfying, mixing swordplay with magical signs and potions that help me prepare for different enemies. Many of the side quests feel just as meaningful as the main story, often leading to surprising outcomes depending on the decisions I make. Even after many hours, there always seems to be another mystery or contract waiting somewhere. Because of its massive world, strong storytelling, and rewarding RPG systems, it clearly belongs in the masterpiece tier. Assassin's Creed Odyssey takes me to ancient Greece during the Peloponnesian War, where I play as a mercenary exploring a massive open world filled with islands, cities, and battlefields. I spend a lot of time sailing across the Aegean Sea, climbing temples, and getting involved in conflicts between Sparta and Athens. Combat feels fast and flexible, letting me mix melee attacks, archery, and stealth abilities depending on how I want to approach a fight. The world is beautiful and full of things to discover, from side quests to naval battles. Some missions feel repetitive, but the scale of the adventure and the freedom to shape my character keep it interesting. Because of its huge world, strong combat systems, and memorable setting, this adventure fits well in the great tier. Sifu is one of the most demanding martial arts games I've played, and it constantly pushes me to improve with every fight. The story follows a simple revenge path against 5 targets, but the journey through each level gradually reveals more about the characters and their past. The combat stands out immediately, with precise punches, kicks, blocks, and counters that require careful timing. I have to learn enemy patterns, use the environment, and stay focused during every encounter. One of the most interesting mechanics is the aging system, where each death makes my character older and closer to the end of their lifespan. That means I often replay levels to perform better and reach later stages while still young. The challenge is tough, but mastering its combat and overcoming difficult fights places this experience in the masterpiece tier. Horizon Forbidden West continues Aloy's journey into a new region filled with dangerous machines, rival tribes, and mysteries about the future of the world. As I explored the Forbidden West, I kept discovering new settlements, side quests, and hidden stories that made the world feel alive. Combat remains one of the strongest parts of the experience, especially when I target machine weak points with different arrows, traps, and weapons. Every machine behaves differently, so each fight pushes me to change tactics and stay alert. I also liked how the story focuses more on the people around Aloy and the tensions between different tribes. The world itself is incredibly detailed, with deserts, jungles, ruins, and coastlines that are rewarding to explore. With its strong combat, rich world, and engaging story, this adventure clearly lands in the excellent tier. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 brings back Task Force 141 for another global mission, and I enjoyed jumping into its cinematic campaign. The story moves across several locations and mixes intense firefights with slower tactical moments that keep missions varied. Some levels experiment with different mechanics, like directing teammates through cameras or surviving with limited equipment, which adds a bit of freshness to the usual formula. The gunplay still feels solid and responsive, and the presentation looks impressive with detailed environments and strong cutscenes. Multiplayer keeps the familiar Call of Duty pace with plenty of modes and weapon customization, though the launch content feels a bit limited and some menu systems are awkward to navigate. With its strong core gameplay and a few noticeable shortcomings, this entry sits in the good tier. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order follows Cal Kestis, a young Jedi hiding after the fall of the Jedi Order, and I liked how the story focuses on survival, friendship, and rebuilding hope in a dangerous galaxy. Traveling across different planets with BD1 by my side felt rewarding, especially when solving puzzles, exploring hidden paths, and uncovering pieces of the story. The combat asks me to stay patient and precise, using blocks, dodges, and force powers instead of swinging the lightsaber wildly. Some fights can feel tough, and certain sections require repeating encounters. As the journey continues, new abilities and stronger character moments make the adventure more engaging and memorable. For its strong story, thoughtful combat, and rewarding exploration, this entry earns a place in the excellent tier. Death Stranding places me in the role of Sam Porter Bridges, a courier trying to reconnect isolated communities after a strange apocalyptic event. The journey is unusual for an action game, since most of my time is spent carefully delivering cargo across harsh landscapes while managing balance, weight, and terrain. At first, the constant deliveries feel repetitive, but gradually new tools like vehicles, roads, and zip lines change how I travel and make each route more strategic. I also found the asynchronous multiplayer idea interesting, since other players can leave structures or equipment that help along the way. With its bold design and unforgettable world, this entry stands as a masterpiece tier experience. Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon drops me into fast-paced mech battles where customization and strategy matter as much as raw firepower. Before every mission, I can assemble my mech with different weapons, parts, and systems, and I enjoyed experimenting with builds that changed how each fight played out. Some setups favor speed and dodging, while others focus on heavy armor and overwhelming damage. The missions constantly shift objectives, from infiltrating facilities to facing powerful bosses, so I often had to rethink my loadout and approach. Combat feels intense and satisfying, with missiles, lasers, and boosters flying everywhere as battles unfold at high speed. The story mostly unfolds through briefings and radio chatter, which made it harder for me to connect with the characters. Still, the thrilling combat and deep customization make this a strong entry that lands in the excellent tier. Assassin's Creed Valhalla follows Eivor, a Viking warrior who travels from Norway to England to build a new home for their clan. I enjoyed exploring its huge recreation of Dark Ages England, filled with villages, forests, rivers, and old ruins that constantly invite exploration. Leading raids with a longship and charging into monasteries with my crew is exciting, especially when battles turn into chaotic sieges against fortified castles. The settlement system adds another layer where I can build shops, upgrade facilities, and slowly grow the clan's home base. Combat feels brutal and satisfying once enough abilities and upgrades are unlocked, although the early hours can feel simple and repetitive. The story offers some interesting political alliances and character moments, but the long campaign sometimes stretches longer than it needs to. With its impressive world and solid gameplay, this adventure belongs in the good tier. Devil May Cry 5 begins with a dramatic battle against a powerful demon, setting the stage for a story that follows Nero, Dante, and the mysterious V as they try to stop a growing demonic threat. I enjoyed how the campaign switches between these three characters, each offering a very different combat style. The combat system is easy to understand at first, but becomes extremely deep once I start experimenting with combos and timing. The fast pace, stylish action, and memorable boss battles keep the experience exciting from start to finish. With its outstanding combat and confident design, this game clearly belongs in the masterpiece tier. Resident Evil 4 Remake follows Leon S. Kennedy as he travels to a remote European village to rescue the president's daughter from a terrifying parasite outbreak. I really like how this remake modernizes the original game while keeping the intense survival horror feeling. Movement and shooting feel much smoother now, which makes every fight more dynamic as I back away from enemies, aim carefully, and manage limited ammo. The enemies constantly change tactics and attack in large numbers, so every encounter keeps me alert. The campaign also moves quickly from one memorable scenario to another, from eerie villages to dangerous castles and laboratories. The improved visuals, sound design, and refined combat create constant tension throughout the adventure. With its outstanding action, pacing, and polished design, this game clearly belongs in the masterpiece tier. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim takes place in a vast fantasy land where dragons have returned and a civil war divides the province. I love how the game gives me complete freedom to decide what kind of character I want to become. I can follow the main story, join factions like the Thieves Guild or Dark Brotherhood, craft weapons and potions, or simply wander across mountains and forests looking for hidden quests. The world is packed with discoveries, from random events to massive dungeons and dragon battles that can happen at any time. Skyrim's leveling system also feels natural because skills improve through use, letting my character grow based on how I actually play. Even after many hours, the sense of exploration and choice never fades. With its huge world, endless adventures, and unforgettable atmosphere, this game clearly belongs in the masterpiece tier. Days Gone follows Deacon St. John, a biker surviving in a post-apocalyptic Oregon filled with infected creatures called Freakers. I like how the game mixes open-world exploration with survival elements. Riding across forests, mountains, and abandoned roads feels satisfying. Combat is also engaging, particularly when facing the massive Freaker hordes that chase relentlessly and force me to think carefully about positioning, traps, and explosives. Those moments create some of the most intense encounters in the game. However, many missions start to feel repetitive over time, and the story sometimes loses direction as it goes on. Even with those issues, the strong horde battles, solid combat, and enjoyable exploration make it worthy of the good tier. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales' centers on Miles stepping into the role of Spider-Man while protecting Harlem and the rest of New York City. I enjoy how the story focuses on Miles learning what it means to be a hero while balancing life with his family and friends. The game keeps the smooth web swinging and combat from the previous Spider-Man game, but adds Miles' unique abilities like bioelectric venom attacks and camouflage, which bring more variety to fights and stealth sections. Swinging through a snowy New York during the holiday season also gives the city a fresh atmosphere that looks vibrant and alive. The story is shorter than the original game, but the missions feel more focused and meaningful. With its strong storytelling, exciting combat, and stylish movement, this game earns a place in the great tier. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the Hinokami Chronicles recreates the early arcs of the anime, letting me play through major battles with characters like Tanjiro and Nezuko. I did enjoy how the cutscenes stay faithful to the anime and look visually impressive, especially during the big moments from the story. However, the actual gameplay in the story mode often feels slow and repetitive. I spend a lot of time slowly walking through simple areas, repeating the same tasks, and listening to long conversations before reaching the next fight. The arena combat itself looks flashy and is easy to learn, but I quickly noticed the limited roster of unique characters and the repetitive structure across the game. A few boss fights and the visual presentation stand out, but they aren't enough to carry the experience. Because of these issues, I place this game in the trash tier. God of War III Remastered puts me back in the brutal final chapter of Kratos' revenge against the Olympian gods, and it still feels massive in scale. The improved visuals, smoother performance, and sharper lighting make every battle look even more intense, with huge environments and towering bosses that constantly remind me how epic this journey is. Combat remains fast, brutal, and satisfying, with a wide set of weapons and combos that keep every fight engaging. I also enjoy the platforming sections and environmental puzzles that break up the action and add variety throughout the adventure. The story can feel a bit messy, especially if someone hasn't played the earlier games, but the spectacle and gameplay carry the experience from start to finish. In my view, this legendary action game easily belongs in the masterpiece tier. Wolfenstein II, The New Colossuses puts me right back into BJ Blazkowicz's brutal fight against a terrifying alternate history Nazi regime. What stood out to me most was the strong cast of characters and how much personality they bring to the story. BJ's inner thoughts, the rebels around him, and the chilling presence of General Engel create a narrative that constantly kept my attention. The shooting feels fast and satisfying, especially with the ability to dual-wield weapons and approach battles either stealthily or with full chaos. I also enjoy how the perk system rewards different playstyles, encouraging me to experiment with headshots, stealth kills, and heavy weapons. Some levels feel a bit gloomy and movement can occasionally get awkward during combat, but the intense action and memorable characters keep the experience engaging. For me, this thrilling shooter easily earns a place in the excellent tier. BioShock the Collection lets me experience the full BioShock trilogy in one package, bringing together 3 unforgettable adventures along with their DLC. Returning to Rapture and Columbia reminded me how powerful these games still are, especially with their strong atmosphere, memorable characters, and thought-provoking stories. The original BioShock benefits the most from the visual upgrades, making the eerie underwater city feel even more striking while I explore every corner once again. BioShock 2 still offers satisfying combat improvements and an engaging return to Rapture, while BioShock Infinite delivers a grand story in the bright floating city of Columbia. Even though the upgrades across the collection aren't always consistent, the core experiences remain exceptional. For me, having three iconic games together easily earns this package a place in the masterpiece tier. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag lets me live out a pirate adventure across the massive Caribbean, and it remains one of the most exciting entries in the series. Sailing the open sea with the Jackdaw, discovering hidden islands, hunting sea creatures, and attacking enemy ships creates a sense of freedom that keeps the experience constantly fresh. I love how the world is packed with activities, encouraging me to explore rather than rush through the main missions. The tropical environments, beautiful ocean effects, and dynamic sailing make every journey across the water feel memorable. Edward Kenway is also a refreshing protagonist, driven more by personal ambition than the usual assassin ideals, which gives the story a different tone. For me, this unforgettable pirate journey clearly earns a spot in the masterpiece tier. Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered takes me back to one of the most memorable shooters ever made, now with sharper visuals and smoother performance. The improved textures, lighting, and animations make the classic campaign feel fresh again while still preserving the original gameplay. Missions like All Gillied Up and Mile High Club remain incredibly tense and exciting, and the cinematic storytelling still works surprisingly well today. I also appreciate how the combat feels more grounded compared to newer entries in the series, forcing me to rely on careful movement, positioning, and cover during intense firefights. While the remaster doesn't add a huge amount of new content, the upgraded presentation and timeless gameplay make revisiting this classic shooter worthwhile. For me, this legendary experience belongs in the excellent tier. Hogwarts Legacy finally lets me experience life as a student at Hogwarts, and exploring this magical world is easily the highlight of the game. Walking through the castle's halls, discovering secret passages, flying on a broom across the countryside, and visiting places like Hogsmeade truly capture the feeling of being part of the wizarding world. I especially enjoy the spellcasting combat, where I can combine different spells together to create satisfying magical combos during battles. The side activities also keep me busy for dozens of hours, from brewing potions and caring for magical creatures to customizing my own room of requirement. While the story itself isn't particularly deep and enemy variety becomes repetitive over time, the world and gameplay still manage to keep the experience engaging. For me, this magical open-world adventure belongs in the great tier. Elden Ring delivers one of the most expansive and unforgettable open-world adventures I've ever experienced. From the moment I step into the lands between, the game gives me complete freedom to explore its massive world, discovering hidden dungeons, powerful bosses, and mysterious characters at my own pace. Every area feels packed with secrets, and I constantly find myself wandering off the main path just to see what might be waiting around the next hill or deep inside a cave. Combat builds on the classic Souls formula with tight mechanics, challenging enemies, and intense boss fights that push my skills to the limit. I also love how flexible character builds are, thanks to systems like Ashes of War and a wide range of weapons, spells, and playstyles. The story can be cryptic and the difficulty can feel overwhelming at times, but the sense of discovery and achievement makes every victory feel rewarding. For me, this incredible journey clearly earns its place in the masterpiece tier. Resident Evil Village places Ethan Winters in a dark European village filled with strange monsters, dangerous encounters, and unsettling mysteries. The game blends the action-focused style of Resident Evil 4 with the first-person perspective introduced in Resident Evil 7, creating a fast-paced survival horror experience. Exploring the village and its surrounding locations remains engaging, since every new area reveals hidden treasures, frightening enemies, and clues about the story. Combat stays exciting thanks to a wider range of monsters and weapons, while upgrades from the Duke add more strategic options during battles. Each major villain rules over a distinct location, helping the journey feel varied as the adventure progresses. Some boss fights feel a bit simple, and the puzzles rarely demand much thinking, but the strong atmosphere and thrilling action keep the experience memorable. This intense horror adventure earns a place in the excellent tier. Assassin's Creed III Remastered lets me revisit the American Revolution with updated visuals and a few helpful gameplay improvements. The biggest upgrade is the graphics, which make the cities, forests, and snowy landscapes of colonial America look far more detailed than before. Exploring places like Boston and the frontier still feels interesting, especially with the seasonal changes and large wilderness areas. Some quality of life improvements also help, such as clearer enemy indicators on the minimap and better stealth mechanics that make sneaking around less frustrating. However, many parts of the experience still show their age, particularly the stiff animations and repetitive mission structure. Long stretches of dialogue and slow-paced objectives can also break the flow of the adventure. Despite these issues, revisiting this historical setting remains enjoyable, placing this remaster in the good tier. Darksiders 2 Death Anitive Edition brings back Death's adventure with improved visuals, smoother performance, and all of the original DLC included. The game blends fast-paced combat, exploration, and RPG-style loot in a way that keeps the journey engaging for many hours. Combat feels responsive with a variety of attacks and abilities, making battles against large groups of enemies satisfying. Exploring the world also stays interesting thanks to diverse environments and a steady flow of quests and secrets to uncover. The dungeons stand out the most, offering clever puzzles, useful tools, and memorable boss fights that echo the structure of classic action-adventure games. While the story itself isn't particularly strong and the gameplay ideas aren't especially original, the mix of exploration, combat, and loot still makes the adventure entertaining. This action-adventure experience belongs in the great tier. Grand Theft Auto V is one of those games where I always find something interesting to do. I switch between three characters, Michael, Franklin, and Trevor, and each one brings a different style to the story and missions. The heists are a big highlight, letting me plan approaches and take part in huge action sequences that feel exciting every time. The shooting and driving mechanics are also improved compared to earlier games in the series, which makes everything smoother. With its massive world, strong characters, and endless things to discover, Grand Theft Auto V clearly earns its place in the masterpiece tier. Uncharted: The Nathan Drake Collection lets me experience the first three Uncharted adventures in one updated package. The remaster improves visuals and runs at a smooth 60 frames per second, which makes the action feel better than before. Each game mixes shooting, climbing, and exploration in a way that keeps the pace moving. I enjoy following Nathan Drake on treasure hunts across jungles, cities, and ancient ruins while the story unfolds with plenty of character moments and humor. Uncharted 2 stands out the most with its strong pacing and memorable set pieces, though all three games still hold up well today. The collection does not include many extra features, but the core games remain fun and exciting to play. With great storytelling, cinematic moments, and polished gameplay, this collection easily belongs in the excellent tier. So, those are my top PS4 picks, chosen based on gameplay quality, story, and overall experience. Of course, rankings like this are subjective, so let me know which PS4 games you'd put in your own top tiers. Thanks for watching.